Epictetus once said, "When someone irritates you, know that it is your opinion which has upset you." Think about that. When someone cuts you off in traffic, insults you, or dismisses you, it isn't their action that makes you angry. It's the meaning you've attached to it. We get upset because we believe, they disrespected me, they shouldn't treat me this way, this isn't fair. But those are our judgments, not facts. The Stoics knew this. Nobody can inject anger into you. They can only act. You supply the story, you supply the fire. So the next time you feel anger rising, pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling right now? And do I want to keep telling it? Because here's the truth. Anger is borrowed energy. You're drinking poison and hoping the other person suffers. But the only person it burns is you. Freedom begins when you take responsibility for your interpretation. You may not control them, but you control the meaning. And if you change the meaning, you change the emotion. That's the Stoic path. Not blaming the world for your anger, but mastering your response to it. We could also say this about sadness, grief, fear, anxiety, and many other emotions. Our mind has the ability to dwell on the past. It can ruminate over what happened, why it happened, how it happened, who was involved, and so on. And as we chew on these thoughts, we can make ourselves feel worse and worse. Or we can accept what happened, understand its causes, learn from it, and then let it go. One approach leads to misery. The other leads to peace. The key is in recognizing that we have this choice. The philosopher Epictetus says that pain is in your head. He didn't mean that pain is imaginary. Of course not. A broken leg hurts. Injury stings. Grief over the loss of a loved one is very real. What he meant is that the pain is in your head first. In other words, the experience of pain is interpreted by your brain. Then it gets projected onto whatever has caused it. Imagine you fall down and scrape your knee. There is a brief moment when you don't yet know that you're hurt. It's like the pain receptors are sending messages to your brain, but they aren't being interpreted. At the same time, there's a small cut on your knee. Pain is in your head first, as an uninterpreted sensation. Then it gets projected onto whatever has caused it. So the pain is in your head first, as an uninterpreted sensation. Then it gets projected onto whatever has caused it. If you look at that scraped knee and think, oh wow, this is terrible. I'm never going to recover from this. My whole life is ruined. Then you're assigning catastrophic meaning to this event. You're making it more painful than it has to be. On the other hand, if you think, well, it's just a little scratch, no big deal, then you're making it less painful. The pain is still there, but the interpretation of it is up to us. It always is. Now I know that this might sound like a subtle distinction, but it's really important because it tells us where our power lies. I don't have any control over what happens to me, but I do have control over what I tell myself about what happens. And if I can control the story I tell myself, then I can control my emotional response. That's the idea of the locus of control. Psychologists have studied this extensively, and they found that people who have an external locus of control blame outside forces for their problems. They say things like, I lost my job because the economy is terrible, or I failed that class because the teacher did not like me. People with an internal locus of control, on the other hand, take responsibility. They say, I lost my job because I was not very good at it, or I failed that class because I did not study enough. Studies show that people with an internal locus of control tend to be more successful, because they are more likely to take responsibility for solving their problems. This isn't about being self-critical or blaming yourself. It's simply about taking an honest assessment of your actions and then doing better next time. So what does all this have to do with anger? Well, anger, like pain, is an emotion that is interpreted by your brain. When someone pisses you off, your brain is sending you signals, but unless you give them meaning, those signals stay in the background. When you choose to interpret them as anger, then you project that interpretation onto the situation. You say, they did something that made me angry, or this situation is making me angry. But anger is a story you choose to tell yourself. It's not a command from your subconscious. The reality is that most of the things that make us angry don't actually make us angry. It's our belief about them that makes us angry. They should know better. It's not fair that they would treat me this way. People like this make me so angry. These are all stories you choose to tell yourself. Now, these stories might be automatic. We all have some conditioned responses. When the same stimulus occurs over and over again, eventually you react in a predictable way. You might hear the word taxes and feel a sense of dread. You might see a syringe and feel a twinge of fear. You might hear the word cancer and feel overwhelmed with sadness. These associations are automatic. They happen without conscious effort. But the fact that they're automatic doesn't mean you have to follow them. Whenever you feel an emotion like anger, pause for a second and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Because you are in charge of the story you tell yourself. You're in charge of your beliefs. You're in charge of your interpretation. Now, sometimes our stories about what happened will be correct. Sometimes the world really is unfair. Sometimes people really do treat us badly. Sometimes things really are terrible. It happens. But even in those cases, it's our story that transforms these events into an emotion. They treated me unfairly. This sucks. I'm screwed. These are all stories we tell ourselves. We have the power to change them. So back to anger specifically. Anger is usually based on a sense of injustice, the idea that things aren't fair, or that you've been treated unjustly. But things don't actually have to be fair for you to be happy. Take two kids on a playground, for example. One kid has a toy, and the other wants it. The kid who has the toy might think, this toy is mine. I want it fair and square. The kid who doesn't have the toy might think, that's not fair. I want to play with it too. Who is happier? It's the kid with the toy, right? He's enjoying his little victory. He's enjoying his possession. But if you tried to take the toy away from him, he would become angry. Fairness is a myth. All of us make it a god, but no one can guarantee fairness. Your happiness doesn't depend on it. In the ancient Greek plays, there's this recurring theme that people who seek revenge end up destroying themselves. Think about it. When you choose to be angry at someone, when you choose to hold on to that anger, you're punishing yourself. Why? Because you're choosing to focus on negative thoughts. You're dwelling on the past. You're making yourself miserable. In the process, you're becoming bitter. You're wasting time and energy on resentment. You're harming your health. You're remaking your present moment miserable in the hopes that someday in the future you will get even. But it never works out that way. The best revenge is living well. The best revenge is indifference. If you want to feel better, then let it go. Forgive them. Don't let your anger define you. This is the Stoic path. It's hard, but it's worth it. By the way, if you want to keep growing with this idea of mastering your emotions, make sure you follow at Found Teachings 111. Every day we share Stoic wisdom, ancient quotes, and practical lessons to help you shift your perspective and strengthen your mind. If you found value in this, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and keeps Stoic wisdom alive for more people. Thanks for watching.